If you're over 60 and taking multiple medications, what I'm about to share could change how you approach your health. There's something missing from most treatment plans, something so simple yet so powerful that when my patients discover it, they often tell me they wish they'd known about it decades earlier. This isn't about replacing your medications, but about giving your body what it desperately needs to work at its best, even while you continue your prescribed treatments. I'm Dr. Emily Hartman, and I've been working in geriatric medicine for over 15 years. During that time, I've witnessed thousands of patients struggle with declining strength, mental fog, and fatigue, and I've learned that while medications play a crucial role, there's often a fundamental nutritional gap that nobody's addressing. Today, I want to share something that's transformed the lives of many of my patients. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Let me start by telling you about something that happened in my clinic just 3 months ago. I had been treating Mr. Robert Chen, a 72-year-old retired accountant from San Francisco. Robert came to me feeling completely defeated. He told me, and I'll never forget his exact words, "Doctor, I take 8 different pills every morning, and I feel worse than I did 5 years ago when I was only taking 3. He described constant fatigue, trouble remembering simple things like where he put his keys, and muscle weakness that made climbing stairs exhausting. His wife had started doing all the grocery shopping because he simply didn't have the energy anymore. What struck me during Robert's appointment wasn't just his symptoms. It was what I discovered when I asked him to describe a typical day of eating. Breakfast was usually instant oatmeal or toast with jam. Lunch might be a sandwich with deli meat. Dinner was often something quick and easy, frequently pasta with jarred sauce or a frozen meal. When I asked about protein intake, he looked confused. "I eat meat sometimes," he said. "Isn't that enough?" Here's what most people don't understand. After 60, your body goes through profound changes in how it processes and uses nutrients, particularly protein. Your muscles become resistant to the signals that tell them to grow and maintain themselves. Medical researchers call this anabolic resistance. Think of it like this. When you were younger, your muscles were like eager students, ready to absorb every lesson. After 60, they become more skeptical students. They need more convincing, more repetition, more of everything to get the same result. The consequences of this are staggering. Most people over 60 are losing muscle mass at a rate of 3 to 8% per decade, and this accelerates after 70. This isn't just about looking weaker. It's about your entire body functioning less effectively. Your muscles are metabolic powerhouses. They regulate blood sugar, they support your immune system, they protect your bones, and they directly influence brain function through proteins called myokines that travel from muscle tissue to your brain. Let me tell you about Mrs. Patricia Lima, 68 years old, a former elementary school teacher from Miami. Patricia's story absolutely broke my heart when she first came to see me. She had been an active, vibrant woman who loved gardening and playing with her grandchildren. But over the course of 2 years, she developed what she described as brain fog so thick I couldn't think straight. She started forgetting appointments, losing track of conversations midway through, and feeling so mentally exhausted by noon that she needed to nap. Her family doctor had run tests. Everything came back normal, and she was told it was probably just normal aging. She was put on medication for mild cognitive decline. When Patricia sat in my office, she cried. She told me, "I feel like I'm disappearing. My grandchildren ask me to play, and I can't keep up. I used to read 2 books a week. Now I can't focus long enough to finish a chapter. Is this just what 68 looks like?" I reviewed her medications. They were appropriate. I looked at her medical history, nothing alarming. Then I asked her to track her food intake for a week. When she returned, the picture became crystal clear. Patricia was consuming barely 40 grams of protein daily, less than half of what her body needed. Her brain, which requires a constant supply of amino acids to produce neurotransmitters, the chemicals that allow your brain cells to communicate, was essentially running on empty. Here's the crucial connection that most people miss. Your brain cells need amino acids from protein to create serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all the neurotransmitters that regulate mood, focus, memory, and cognitive function. When you're protein deficient, your brain literally cannot produce adequate amounts of these critical chemicals. No medication can compensate for this fundamental building block deficiency. But here's where it gets even more interesting. I need to talk about something most doctors never discuss with their patients. Many common medications actually increase your protein requirements. If you're taking diuretics for blood pressure, corticosteroids for inflammation, or certain diabetes medications, your body is losing or using protein at a faster rate. Yet nobody tells you to increase your protein intake to compensate. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, comment below to show you're following along. Let me introduce you to Mr. James Sullivan, a 75-year-old retired firefighter from Boston. James had type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. He was on 5 different medications. He came to me because, despite taking all his medications religiously, his blood sugar control was getting worse, not better. His endocrinologist was considering adding insulin to his regimen. James was frustrated and scared. He told me, "I've followed every instruction, I take every pill, but nothing's improving. What am I doing wrong?" We did a comprehensive metabolic assessment, and I discovered James was consuming about 50 grams of protein daily, mostly from processed sources. His muscle mass was significantly below normal for his age and height. Here's why this mattered for his diabetes. Muscle tissue is the primary site where your body stores glucose after meals. When you don't have adequate muscle mass, glucose has nowhere to go, so it stays in your bloodstream, driving up your blood sugar levels. His medications were trying to manage blood sugar, but his body didn't have the metabolic machinery, the muscle tissue, to effectively use that glucose. I explained to James that while he absolutely needed to continue his medications, we needed to rebuild his metabolic foundation through targeted nutrition. We focused on increasing his protein intake to approximately 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight spread throughout the day. This meant about 90 to 100 grams of protein daily for him. Within 3 months, James's fasting blood sugar dropped by 30 points. His hemoglobin A1C, the measure of long-term blood sugar control, improved significantly. His muscle strength increased dramatically. He told me, "I can get up from a chair without using my hands for the first time in 5 years." Now, I know what you're thinking. What specific foods am I talking about? The answer might surprise you because it's not exotic or expensive. I'm talking about high-quality, complete protein sources. Let me explain what makes protein complete. Your body needs 20 different amino acids, but it can only produce 11 of them. The other 9 are called essential amino acids because you must get them from food. Complete proteins contain all 9 essential amino acids in adequate amounts. The best sources are eggs, which are incredibly nutrient-dense and one of the most bioavailable proteins available. Greek yogurt, which also provides probiotics for gut health. Fatty fish like salmon, which combines protein with omega-3 fatty acids crucial for brain function and reducing inflammation. Lean poultry, legumes combined with whole grains for plant-based options, and cottage cheese, which is particularly rich in casein, a slow-digesting protein that provides a steady stream of amino acids. But if this surprised you, wait until you hear about timing and distribution. Mrs. Angela Rodriguez, 70 years old, a retired nurse from Phoenix, came to me with a common pattern I see repeatedly. She would eat very little for breakfast, maybe some fruit and coffee. A light lunch, perhaps a salad with a small amount of chicken. Then a larger dinner with meat, vegetables, and starches. She thought she was eating healthy by keeping portions small throughout the day. But here's the problem. She was consuming maybe 70% of her daily protein in one meal at dinner. Recent research has shown something fascinating about protein metabolism in older adults. Your body can only use a certain amount of protein at one time to build and maintain muscle. For people over 60, you need approximately 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein per meal to trigger muscle protein synthesis, the process where your body actually builds and repairs muscle tissue. When Angela ate most of her protein at dinner, her body used what it could and essentially wasted the excess because it can't store amino acids for later use like it stores fat or carbohydrates. Angela was experiencing significant muscle weakness, particularly in her legs. She had fallen twice in the past year, thankfully without serious injury, but she was becoming afraid to walk outside alone. She told me, "I feel trapped in my own body. I want to be independent, but I don't trust my legs anymore." We restructured her eating pattern to include protein at every meal. Breakfast became 2 eggs with whole grain toast and avocado. Lunch included Greek yogurt with nuts, or a substantial portion of chicken with vegetables. Dinner remained similar but slightly smaller. Within 2 months, Angela reported that her legs felt solid again. She started walking her neighborhood every morning. At her 6-month follow-up, she told me with tears in her eyes that she had gone on a weekend trip with her daughter and grandchildren, something she hadn't felt strong enough to do in 3 years. Here's something critical that connects all of this. When you don't consume adequate protein, your body doesn't just lose muscle, it enters a state of chronic low-grade inflammation. This inflammation accelerates cognitive decline, increases cardiovascular risk, and makes it harder for your body to respond to medications effectively. It's like trying to drive a car with dirty oil. The engine might still run, but everything works harder and wears out faster. Let me share the story of Mr. David Kim, 82 years old, a retired engineer from Seattle. David's situation was particularly complex because he had multiple conditions: heart disease, arthritis, and early-stage kidney disease. His doctors had him on a complex medication regimen, and he'd been told by one physician years ago to limit protein because of his kidneys. This is outdated advice that's been disproven by current research for most patients with kidney disease. But David didn't know that. He was consuming barely 40 grams of protein daily. David's quality of life had deteriorated significantly. He couldn't walk more than 50 feet without becoming winded and exhausted. His thinking was clouded. He told me he felt like he was just waiting to decline further. His family was discussing assisted living options because he couldn't manage his daily activities anymore. After consulting with his nephrologist and confirming that moderate protein intake was safe for his kidney function level, we gradually increased David's protein consumption to appropriate levels, along with strategic nutrient timing around his physical therapy sessions. The transformation was remarkable. Within 4 months, David was walking a quarter-mile daily. His mental clarity improved so much that he started doing crossword puzzles again, something he'd given up 2 years earlier. At his 1-year follow-up, he told me, "You gave me my life back. I thought I was done, but I feel like I have years of living still ahead of me." Now, let me address something crucial. I'm not suggesting anyone stop their medications. That would be dangerous and irresponsible. What I'm advocating for is recognizing that medications work best when your body has the fundamental building blocks it needs to function properly. Think of it like this: medications are tools, but they need good materials to work with. If you're trying to build a house with the best power tools but you only have rotten wood, you're still going to have a weak structure. I also need to talk about a common concern I hear. Won't eating more protein damage my kidneys? For the vast majority of people, including most with early-stage kidney disease, moderate increases in high-quality protein are not only safe, but beneficial. The key is moderate and high quality. We're not talking about excessive amounts. We're talking about meeting your body's actual needs, which are higher after 60 than they were when you were younger. Always work with your physician to determine what's appropriate for your specific situation. This brings me to another critical aspect that most people don't consider: the synergy between protein intake and your existing medications. Many of my patients have experienced what I call the optimization effect. When your body has adequate protein, many medications work more efficiently. Your liver, which processes most medications, needs protein to function properly. Your kidneys, which eliminate medication waste products, depend on adequate protein for optimal function. Your cardiovascular system, which distributes medications throughout your body, relies on protein to maintain blood vessel integrity and proper circulation. Let me tell you about Mr. William Anderson, 79 years old, a retired mechanic from Portland. William came to me taking 9 different medications for various conditions including atrial fibrillation, high cholesterol, arthritis, and osteoporosis. He was experiencing what his cardiologist called medication side effects, including persistent fatigue, dizziness, and muscle aches. Multiple attempts to adjust his medications hadn't helped much. William told me, "I feel like the medications are killing me slower than the diseases would." When I evaluated William's nutrition, I discovered he was consuming barely 45 grams of protein daily. His muscle mass was critically low, which meant his body composition was heavily skewed toward fat tissue. Here's why this mattered for his medications. Many drugs are either fat-soluble or water-soluble, and the distribution of these substances in your body depends heavily on your muscle-to-fat ratio. With inadequate muscle mass, William's medications weren't distributing properly through his system, leading to ineffective dosing and increased side effects. We implemented a structured nutrition plan focusing on protein adequacy while maintaining all his medications. Within 2 months, William reported that his energy levels had improved dramatically. The muscle aches decreased significantly. His cardiologist was able to optimize his medication dosages because William's body was now processing them more predictably. 6 months later, William told me something that gave me chills. "I actually feel like taking my medications is helping me now, instead of just making me feel worse in a different way." Now, I need to address something that's particularly important for women over 60. Hormonal changes after menopause dramatically increase protein requirements. Estrogen plays a significant role in maintaining muscle mass, and when estrogen levels drop, women become even more susceptible to muscle loss than men of the same age. Yet most nutritional guidelines don't adequately account for this difference. Mrs. Sandra Martinez, 66 years old, a retired teacher from Atlanta, struggled with this exact issue. After menopause, she gained 30 pounds despite eating the same way she always had. She felt weak, her bones were losing density, and she was diagnosed with osteopenia, the precursor to osteoporosis. Her doctor prescribed medication for bone density, but Sandra continued to feel fragile and weak. She told me, "I feel like my body betrayed me. I've always been strong, and now I feel like I could break at any moment." Sandra's bone density medication was appropriate, but it was only part of the solution. Bones aren't just made of calcium, they're living tissue with a protein matrix that calcium deposits onto. Without adequate protein, that matrix weakens, and no amount of calcium or medication can fully compensate. Additionally, the muscles surrounding bones provide crucial support and stimulation that helps maintain bone density. We increased Sandra's protein intake substantially, focusing on sources that also provided other bone-supporting nutrients. We ensured she had adequate vitamin D, which works synergistically with protein for both muscle and bone health. Within 4 months, Sandra's muscle strength improved so noticeably that she started strength training for the first time in her life. At her next bone density scan, her doctor was surprised to see that not only had the decline stopped, but she'd actually gained a small amount of bone density. Sandra told me, "I feel strong again. Not just physically, but emotionally. I'm not afraid of breaking anymore." Another patient, Mrs. Helen Thompson, 74 years old, a retired librarian from Denver, taught me an important lesson about the psychological aspect of this approach. Helen had been dealing with depression and anxiety for years, managed with medications that helped but never fully resolved her symptoms. She felt emotionally flat, unmotivated, and told me, "I'm not really living. I'm just existing." When we optimized her protein intake along with her medications, something unexpected happened. Within weeks, she reported feeling more emotionally resilient. Her mood improved noticeably. She started feeling motivated to do activities she'd abandoned. The reason? Adequate amino acid intake is essential for producing serotonin and other mood-regulating neurotransmitters. Her antidepressant medication could work more effectively because her brain finally had the raw materials it needed to produce adequate neurotransmitters. Helen told me something profound during a follow-up visit. I always thought depression at my age was just something I had to accept. But now I realize my brain was literally starving, and no amount of medication could fix that fundamental problem. This connects to something else I see frequently in my practice: the cascade effect of protein deficiency. It's not just one system that suffers, it's multiple systems simultaneously, and they compound each other's problems. When you don't have adequate muscle mass, your metabolism slows down, which affects blood sugar regulation, which impacts cardiovascular health, which reduces oxygen delivery to the brain, which impairs cognitive function, which can lead to poor dietary choices, which further worsens protein deficiency. It becomes a vicious cycle that's difficult to break without addressing the root nutritional issue. Mr. George Patterson, 77 years old, a retired airline pilot from Dallas, exemplified this cascade perfectly. When he first came to my clinic, he was caught in what seemed like an inescapable downward spiral. He had gained 40 pounds over 5 years, developed type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, was experiencing significant cognitive decline, and had fallen into depression. His medication list had grown from 2 prescriptions to 11. He told me, "Every time I see my doctor, there's a new problem and a new pill. I feel like I'm collecting diseases." George's labs showed multiple issues, but what struck me most was his body composition analysis. Despite being overweight, he had critically low muscle mass, a condition called sarcopenic obesity. He was essentially carrying excess fat while simultaneously suffering from muscle starvation. His protein intake was approximately 50 grams daily, mostly from processed sources with poor amino acid profiles. Here's what was happening in George's body. His low muscle mass meant poor blood sugar control, forcing his pancreas to work overtime producing insulin. The excess insulin promoted fat storage and made weight loss nearly impossible. The inflammation from excess fat tissue impaired his cognitive function and worsened his depression. His weak muscles meant he avoided physical activity, which further accelerated muscle loss and worsened every other problem. His brain, lacking adequate amino acids, couldn't produce sufficient neurotransmitters, deepening his depression and creating a mental fog that made it hard to make good decisions about his health. We developed a comprehensive plan that kept all his medications in place while strategically addressing his protein deficiency. We aimed for 90 grams of high-quality protein daily, distributed evenly across his meals. We incorporated gentle strength-bearing activities appropriate for his fitness level. The transformation took time, but it was remarkable. Over 8 months, George lost 25 pounds, but more importantly, he gained significant muscle mass. His blood sugar control improved so much that his endocrinologist was able to reduce one of his diabetes medications. His blood pressure stabilized, allowing for medication adjustment there too. His depression lifted substantially, and his cognitive function improved dramatically. At his 1-year follow-up, George told me something I'll never forget. "I thought I was dying slowly, just managing decline. But you showed me I was starving in the middle of plenty. I had food, but not the right food. Now I feel like I'm actually healing, not just being managed." Let me give you practical guidance. If you're over 60, aim for approximately 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily. For someone weighing 150 pounds, that's roughly 68 to 82 grams daily. Distribute this across 3 meals, aiming for 25 to 30 grams per meal. Choose high-quality sources like eggs, fish, poultry, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and legumes. Timing matters too. Try to eat protein within an hour after any physical activity, even just a walk, to maximize muscle protein synthesis. If you take medications that affect nutrient absorption, talk to your doctor about timing your protein intake optimally around those medications. Here's something else that's crucial: hydration. Protein metabolism requires adequate water. Many older adults are chronically underhydrated, which impairs protein utilization and can worsen kidney function. Aim for 8 glasses of water daily, more if you're active or in hot weather. I want to be clear about realistic expectations. This approach won't cure diseases or allow you to stop medications that you need. What it will do is optimize how your body functions, potentially allowing your medications to work more effectively, reducing some symptoms, and dramatically improving your quality of life, strength, and cognitive function. Mr. Thomas O'Brien, 78 years old, a retired postal worker from Chicago, summed it up perfectly. After 6 months of optimized nutrition alongside his medication regimen, he told me, "I'm not 20 years old again, and I don't expect to be. But I'm the best version of 78 I can be. I'm strong enough to do what I want to do. My mind is clear. I'm not just surviving anymore, I'm actually living again. That's all I ever wanted." So here's my message to you. If you're over 60 and feeling like your body and mind aren't working the way they should, even though you're taking your medications faithfully, consider that you might be missing this fundamental nutritional component. Your medications are important and necessary, but they're only part of the equation. Your body needs the right building blocks to repair, maintain, and thrive. Talk to your doctor about getting a comprehensive nutritional assessment. Ask about your protein needs specifically. Many physicians don't routinely discuss this because they're focused on managing diseases and prescribing medications. But this doesn't mean it's not important. Be your own advocate. Ask the questions. Request guidance on optimizing your nutrition alongside your medical treatment. Start making small changes. Add an egg to breakfast. Include Greek yogurt as a snack. Choose fish twice a week. Pay attention to how you feel. Keep a journal of your energy levels, mental clarity, and physical strength. You might be surprised at what happens when you give your body what it's been lacking. Remember, aging doesn't have to mean declining. There's a difference between getting older and becoming frail. With the right approach, combining appropriate medical care with optimal nutrition, you can maintain strength, clarity, and vitality well into your later years. You deserve to feel strong and clear-headed. You deserve to live fully, not just exist. If this information resonated with you, please share this video with someone who might benefit. Leave a comment below about your own experiences or questions. And most importantly, take action. Talk to your doctor. Make changes. Don't accept decline as inevitable when there are concrete steps you can take to feel better. Your best years don't have to be behind you. With the right tools, knowledge, and approach, you can thrive at any age. Thank you for watching, and here's to your health and strength in the years ahead.